Right. Please sit down, grab your pews. Right. So next up we have our case study. It's already appeared. That's good. So this is a client of ours. I'm very proud to have them here. Some of this, hopefully, is some of the work we've contributed to. So this is Mark Abrami, who is the Global Social Media Director at Sage. He's going to be presenting as well with Ellie Silson, who works with him, is on the influencer community. So in terms of Mark's experience, it goes way back, in fact. So sort of 2011, 2012, he was working on different brands. He was at Pernod Ricard originally, and then moved on to Ballantine's Scotch Whisky, where you may have seen the Human API Facebook Live stream campaign that he did. It was one of the first big live streamed Facebook campaigns that really hit the industry. So he's got great pedigree, and he's going to talk through the influencer program for Sage. Thanks.
Thanks, Luke. Good morning, everyone. Yes, so as Luke said, here to talk about how we at Sage are approaching our influencer programs. For those of you who don't know who Sage is, and hopefully you do, we are the UK's biggest technology company. We develop and distribute accounting, payroll, human capital management software for businesses of all size. So your sole proprietor, your entrepreneur, all the way up to big enterprise level customers. So a massive range in terms of audiences that we talk to, customers that we are dealing with, and potential customers that we are targeting. And so we need to be making sure that we're using every single channel in the most effective ways, not least of all social media. So I look after all of our social marketing activity, which is everything from our Facebook pages and Twitter feeds, publishing content, through to paid social, influencer marketing, a huge piece today as well on our employee advocacy program. So all of the ways in which we're using social to engage with the right audiences. But I think to start this off, I'd like to just take a very quick journey through digital marketing, a couple of highlighted pieces, because I think this adds context to where we as brands and as organizations are today. So if we go back to 1991, you may have had a massive CRT monitor on your desk, and a computer there. If you were lucky, you had a 14.4 dial-up modem, and after a couple of minutes, you would be able to access the internet. And there was the first website in 1991. So within minutes, you could have access to text-based pieces. It's very exciting stuff. What this meant was that actually brands, and as the technology increased, brands were able to get involved and start creating their own online destinations. And this started to then become commonplace, and everybody then had the ability to go on the internet and access brand content. In 2004, so we had seen MySpace come, but went as well. Along came the Facebook. So there's our friend Mark Zuckerberg. He knows what you had for breakfast, and launching what was essentially a platform to connect people. It was all about making that connection between yourself and initially your university or college colleagues, but ultimately becoming a bigger piece for everyone in the world, over 2 billion people now, but also brands got involved here. And started creating brand pages, publishing content. We all had a great time doing apps, personality quizzes, all of those kind of things within Facebook. And a couple of years later, along came Twitter. So everybody has an opinion, and now there was a place for you to publish it for everybody else to see. And again, started out as a way of connecting people, connecting humans. And brands came in and started to use this to their advantage as well. And then in 2007, the iPhone was unveiled. So all of these activities, the websites, the social media elements, were no longer consigned to sitting at your desk or using your laptop. You could now use it on, you could now do it on the go. And this meant that brands could reach out and engage with their audiences wherever they were. Sitting at a conference, on the bus, there was no limit to the places where people could now access content. So great, from a brand perspective, this is, happy days. There were loads of stuff that we were doing and we could do, and we had a jolly old time. Until January this year when, the whole digital marketing world was completely shocked. Because Mark Zuckerberg comes along and says, pesky brands, putting too much content in our users' newsfeed, but thank you for paying us for it. But we need to stop this. We need to do something so that users of Facebook are getting a much better personal experience and not being bombarded by brands. So from a brand perspective, that meant we now have less reach, which we knew anyway. The algorithm has constantly been tweaked out of our favor so that we were no longer reaching all of those audiences, whether they were existing customers or potential customers, in the way that we were. And then along came Cambridge Analytica, the big scandal where, I don't need to say very much more on that other than trust. Trust has completely gone. People who use social media, people who are in the digital space, no longer believe what they see, particularly when it comes from a brand. People have become savvy, the world has turned against us, and so we need to look at different ways in which to engage. And this is where we as brands need to find new and authentic ways of reaching our audiences and our targets. And I think in no other area is this more relevant than within the world of social, because it's not necessarily B2B, B2C in this space, it's human to human. And so as brands, we need to be looking at the ways in which we are engaging with and working with other humans in order to get our message out to the right people and the right audiences that we are trying to reach. So this is where our influencer marketing activity comes in at Sage. So I'm going to hand over to Ellie, who leads this, and she can talk you through some of the specifics and share with you some of the learnings that we have found over the years.
So I'm Ellie. I look after the content and community globally at Sage. And it was probably about 3 years ago we started an influencer program just in the UK and Ireland. And that was to have a group of small business experts who were really credible, authentic, and they were able to reach totally new audiences for us. So currently we still have that program, and they are called the Sage Business Experts. They've got about 80 in the UK and Ireland, and we've just started a global program where we've got about 10. So I'm just going to give you a bit more detail about what we've done. So what makes one of our Sage Business Experts, so one of our influencers? They need to be really, really knowledgeable people. So our target market, or the market we're going for, were the small business owners. So they need to know about basically the pain points of a small business and want to share their knowledge. They want to improve other businesses, and they also have big followings. They also have a really strong online presence. And when I say a big following, it may be a big following within their community. So they may work in very, very niche communities. So moving swiftly on, we chose 3 different types of influencers that we actually wanted to work with. So we wanted to work with micro-influencers, which were about 1,000 to 10,000 followers. So these were they had niche markets they worked within, but they were very passionate about what they do. Professional influencers, so a bit more of a following, so 10,000 to 100,000. And then we also have some macro influencers. Our program itself has numerous disciplines. So we have an accountant, we have designers, we have lawyers involved, marketeers, real breadth of talent and specialisms. How we validated our influencers, we worked with Onalytica. We worked on reach, relevance, and resonance. So that was the reach, how much reach do you have? Relevance, so the topic areas we as a business want to speak about. And resonance, are people actually engaging, or have you bought those followers? We really wanted to work out who was right for our program. So we had 4 simple steps just to reach out to our influencers. We identified our list. We went through, again, like the lady this morning, we went through a lot of time trolling through, working out who was right for us. We didn't want people who were too political. We wanted people who spoke about the right topics. We then engaged with them from our branded accounts. So that would be, it may be just simple likes as engagements, maybe simple follows. And then personally, we reached out to them from our personal accounts. Maybe that is LinkedIn, or it was our Twitter accounts. When it was talking about, do you fancy joining the program? It was very human to human contact, all about what we could do for you and what you could do for us. It's a partnership is our program. And then we worked on a formal invitation and they were part of the program. So moving on to being part of our program, this is what our business experts do for us and how they help us. So they are amazing at vlogging for us, co-authoring a lot of content, a lot of ebooks. We work really closely with them to basically run Twitter Q&As. So little plug, this Thursday, 3 p.m, #Sage Inspire. We have a Twitter Q&A and we have 10 influencers who are all involved talking about business ambition and what really drives people. Quite generic topics, but people love to get involved and hear about other people's passions, building communities. We also do Facebook Lives with our influencers. So last week we had one with our CEO, Stephen Kelly. He sat down with one of our influencers and talked all about AI. AI is a huge topic for us, so it was brilliant to bring that to life. Facebook Live with a real influencer and someone who knew so much about the topic. We ask our influencers to actually attend events for us. So it might be Sage events, but it's also external events. So we've sent influencers to places like Mumsnet. They have their events and then they've come back and wrote some great content. So it's a bit of a partnership. They want to go to that event. We'd love some great content about that event. They share our content on they share our Sage content if it's relevant to them. And I'll go a bit further into details about that. They're great at providing fabulous quotes for our PR team. So a lot of the time you want to bring a story to life and a quote from a real business owner goes a long way. And then they give us some great insight into topical events. So straight after Brexit, we got their opinion a couple of years ago, last year. And that blog itself was the best blog that we've had by an absolute mile because it's from real people. But what do they get in return? So what is the most important thing about our program is it's mutually beneficial for both parties. So they get increased exposure from our blog, so our Sage Advice blog. We post from our Sage accounts, we retweet a lot of their content, so obviously they're part of our community. Their content is also placed into our colleague advocacy program. So we have a piece of software, we use Dynamic Signal, and we're able to place their content where we have 14,000 colleagues who are able to share their content. Great exposure for them, but also great content that our colleagues can share. They do a lot of co-creation on a lot of our ebooks. We also give them a lot of exclusive content. And I know the influencers earlier on were talking about what's in it for them, exclusive content. Our influencers absolutely love. Complimentary access, to the events, our Sage events, some external events, speaking gigs our influencers get. One of the most important things that our influencers get is to network with other influencers in the program. They have built their own little community where they work together, but we actually host events just for these guys. So unless you're a Sage business expert, you're not getting to that event. And we're able to bring keynotes from Facebook, etc. to those events. A few other things, which I won't go into detail, but free product, you get featured on sage.com. So there's quite a few things. And lastly, Sage Biz Meetups. These are events where our influencers put them on. So they host them and we give them a certain amount of money so that they can have, it's basically called a Sage Biz Meetup, but it's actually their event. So how do we keep in touch regularly with our influencers? It is very time consuming, so it's a lot of time. We do weekly emails, so whether that be, it'll be an email saying, oh, we've got this going on social, let us know if you want us to share something for you, or we've got this Twitter Q&A, join in, or have you got a quote that we could use for our PR? And then we've also got a Facebook group, and this is one of our Facebook groups, this is the UK. The influencers are really close now that they will share, so these are both our influencers working together now on their own Facebook Lives, but they'll post it in, there'll be lots of discussions actually happening, and again, it's a community. We also have a WhatsApp group and a LinkedIn group, and we've worked out, for us, the Facebook group is the best place. WhatsApp group and LinkedIn group, not as there's not as much communication going on, but there's options to place stuff in there. So our key successes for last year, we had an event called Sage Summit, and we actually had 17 of our Sage business experts attend. And we actually got trending at the event. And I personally think the main reason we got trending was we had our influencers there. They have a brilliant following. The live tweeting was amazing. We had 120 million impressions and over 65,000 engagements, and we would never have got anywhere near that without our influencers. Last year we had 9 Facebook Lives and 19 Twitter Q&As. We did 2 bespoke events, which were the Sage Biz meetups, and then we also featured them on our Humans of Business Instagram account. So this is a place where we place content about what they do, who they are. It's all about customer curated or business curated content. So moving on to some of the challenges we've faced, because it's not easy. It's a full-time, well, it's a big role. We have been asked about payment. We don't pay any of our influencers. It is a mutually beneficial relationship, and it's dealing with people sticking to your guns, really. You're saying, actually, we don't do that as a business, but you can get this as a benefit. Personalities and demands. Every influencer is very different. There are different demands, different personalities, and it's quite time consuming. So that's a challenge that we've faced. Ensuring the program works for both the influencer and the brand. Sometimes we've had influencers who have joined the program and it hasn't worked for them, or it hasn't worked for us. They maybe haven't done what they've said they're going to do. So it's all about working out what's in it for both of us. Resource and time. So for our business, it takes a lot of time because it is account managing people. And within our business, we're a global business. So trying to replicate in different countries, a lot of people have said they don't have the time or the resource. Tracking and measurements of an influencer program, it's hard, it's tough, you're never going to be able to track everything. We're trying our hardest to track as much by tagging the content, speaking with our influencers, sending links, etc. And then internal awareness of the program. So I need to make sure everybody, or as many people as possible in Sage, know about the program so that they can utilise our influencers. They can provide benefits when they're going to an awards dinner, and we've already bought a table of 10 and they've got some spare seats. Brilliant. Our influencers, we want to send them along to those events. Or if we have a certain event where there's a certain topic, we want to send them across. We need to make everybody within the business aware of the program. So here are just some measures for success that we've been working on. I'll just quickly run through the objectives. So it's developing those strong relationships for us is really important. We've talked about today about it's on a human level. You need to be really, really personable with your influencer, and that's really important to us. The content and the messaging, getting it out to the right audiences, making sure we've got the right person talking about our brand. The brand mentions, is it increasing, etc. And then all down to the leads and the sales and how we're able to report on that. So just a quick overview of, for us, what we've just recently been working on our global program, and this is from that program. In our first month, so this is the timeline, in our first month we developed the program offer. I think that's probably the most important thing, making sure you've got the benefits there, making sure you know what topic areas you actually want to speak about and the audience. Moving on to your second month, identifying your influencers and actually engaging with them, but making sure they're the right influencers. Then your third month, outreaching to the right people, and then starting the planned activity like the simple Twitter Q&As that we're starting to do, the Facebook Lives, and then moving on to the face-to-face events. So we, as a business, are scaling the program. So we have it in the UK and Ireland, we've got it globally, and we're actually now scaling it across our 23 countries. We're starting with South Africa because we're working with Luke from OST. We're starting with South Africa, Spain and France. And what we've been able to do is we know that in the countries, it's hard, it's time consuming. So we've given them a user guide, and this is a guide where it's able to say exactly what can your influencer get from your program. That's basically a checkbox tick list. What do they get? What can you provide them with? What topic areas do you want them to speak about? What audiences? So we started with a user guide, then we turned it into an interactive workbook where every single region fills this out. And then we're now going to start implementing it into each country. So we're starting with South Africa this week, and we've now narrowed it down. We've got the list of influencers. So our South Africa team are going to start reaching out to those guys, building the influencer network, and then starting to put a project plan in. So what's their first activity? Is it that they get them on the sage.com website? Is it that someone writes a blog for us? Is it that they start a Twitter Q&A? But then they're going to start with a calendar. So that's how we've scaled it across our countries. And lastly, my 5 top tips just for running an influencer program. Firstly, find the right influencers. Make sure your objectives are aligned with their objectives. It's really, really important. And obviously the topic areas are right. The second one is, and Ian spoke about that actually earlier on, he wouldn't work with certain companies because they don't speak about the same topics as him. The second tip would be make sure it's beneficial for both parties. It can't just be the brand wins from this or the influencer wins. You have to have some sort of beneficial program. 3, it takes time. There needs to be some sort of part of somebody's job needs to be able to run this program, and you need to have a budget for the program. It might not be to pay your influencer, but it might be to develop some great content with your influencer. It might be to run an event alongside your influencer. It might be to boost, Facebook Lives, but you need some sort of budget. And also for expenses. And then 4, create awareness around the program throughout the organisation. Like I say, we need our PR teams to know that we're here so they can get some great quotes. We need everybody to be aware of the program within our business. And 5, it's all about building a strong relationship and networking. So it's really, really important that you, as a person of the brand, has a really good relationship with that influencer. It's all about, being human and actually having fun with it. An influencer is a human on the other side. It's basically about having fun and being very personable. Any questions? I feel like I've run through that.
We'll give a round of applause for that. Questions for Mark as well? Do you want to come up, Mark, and take the stage? Sure, there must be. Yes, the gentleman at the front here. We've got a mic. It's coming all the way from the back, so just hold on a sec. It's right at the front. Okay.
Thanks a lot. Excellent presentation on B2B. So it's very, very interesting and relevant for me in particular. Just wondering about the conditions that you put out to influencers when engaging in your program, which is very formal and very detailed, which is great.
So this is something we have had conversations as we work with OST and Onalytica to see. We do need some frameworks and some conditions, but at the same time, we don't want to be over prescriptive. We don't want to make it. We don't want to corporatize it too much. So we have agreed that yes, there are some basic pieces. So there's certain things that it's almost common sense in terms of there are certain things that the influencers won't say in our name as such. There's certain areas that we won't go into. But we do leave it pretty open. So if we were to formalize that, it's probably 5 or 6 points maximum, because we just don't want to make it too corporate and too constricted a program.
We don't have like a contract with our influencers. It is a very personal thing. They can do as much as they want for us or as little as they want, but it's got to work for both of us.
Yeah, I'll just chime in on that one. When we've worked through it, I think we were really refreshed by Sage's approach to this, which is kind of very open with the influencers. So there were no onerous responsibilities. It was really just that this is our expectations. Are you happy with those? And the influencers generally, yeah, absolutely. That's why we're on board. So it was quite nice. It's not by no means a contract. So yeah, lady just behind. Yes.
Oh yes. On that topic, aren't you? So there's actually two questions, but because you've mentioned that, aren't you worried that, for example, in my case, and I'm pretty sure the colleagues here from SAP and Cisco would agree, especially when you share information that is not public yet. So that's also something that Bill also mentioned is bringing relevant information that is not really monetized. It's before it comes to market, it's really relevant to them. Aren't you worried that they're going to share that with your competitors? Because if you don't have an NDA, well, as much as you trust them and you have a smaller group, but aren't you worried that might be a challenge? The other thing that I've also actually want to ask, and this was my question to the Lenovo program as well, is how do you make your program relevant in the local space? How do you promote that program on a larger scale inside the company and make sure that people, as you said, when they have an event, they think, oh, maybe I can have an influencer there. That's my personal challenge. So I'd like to hear from you. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll go with the NDA. We don't get them to look at products before anybody else. It's a lot about content and about topical events that we speak to them. So in terms of NDAs, we don't need them to sign anything. There's a lot of trust in our influencers, a lot of relationships that we've built. We're massively on a personal level. But moving on from that, in terms of localizing the content, so we have to run it in each market, and we have to ensure that each of our community managers, so our social community managers, take ownership of that. So as a central team, we're making it as easy as possible for them. We basically give them a guide. Then we've taught them through a playbook where we've gone through every single thing that they can think of, which could be an advantage, what they want. We're then working with Onalytica to get the actual list of influencers. And then it's with the local teams to then go out and actually reach out. And then they know what's happening in their markets. They know what are the right topics to speak about, what's actually happening in current affairs, etc. So we as a business are central team helping, and then it's going down to the local teams. And then the local teams need to manage that with the stakeholders. So they need to be, as a social media manager, and I've done the role in the UK, I needed to know literally everybody in the marketing teams, the comms teams. So it's that one person where you can go, oh, I know you've got an event. Go up and say, have you got any spare tickets, etc., things like that.
Cool. Okay, I think we probably just take,
One more. This is Edita from SAP, also the biggest technology company. Sat down with my colleague from Cisco, another great big company. And I wonder what IBM will say. Lisa, who is one of the speakers. Ellie, thank you for the presentation. It's a shame that your name is not listed here. I guess your picture should be listed for a great speaker. My question is around more of a connection of your program to business objectives and showing how you drive the business value. One of the things I think we all struggle as marketeers is all the time connecting back to the business, what business needs to achieve, and what our activities are actually tangibly deriving for the business. And in most of the B2B companies, we're driven by sales, as we know. Can you just comment on that connection? Thank you.
Yeah, so really good point in terms of value to the business. It's something we're asked on a daily basis by our C-suite and the board. Essentially, how we frame this is every activity we do in social media marketing ties back to the consumer funnel. So there will be certain pieces that we're doing which are driving awareness, and we've got the key metrics, whether that's number of or potential reach or impressions through to consideration, ultimately to purchase as well. So we take and we segment every piece of activity and see where does this fit within the funnel, what is it driving to the business, and we then have various KPIs attached to that, which we then measure, whether it's through UTM tracking, our Google Analytics pieces, or even just the broader social listening and social monitoring tools, to then be able to map that back and say, this is how much additional brand awareness we've driven, this is how we've changed perception of the brand, this is the engagements we've got and the traffic we've driven to the site, which then gets picked up as marketing qualified leads, which our sales teams then follow up on, and we categorize through that. We also have an e-commerce platform, so in time we will start to be driving traffic there, so we can directly attribute sales from the e-commerce platform to some of the activity and the traffic driving that we've done. But it's essentially just taking everything and not just saying all of our activity is going to be in terms of a tangible lead, but actually some of it's going to be much higher funnel activity that's then driving more of those intangible metrics like reputation, awareness, etc.
Cool. I'm going to have to move us on, guys, because we're a little bit over now. So thank you very much for that. It's fantastic.